Good morning again. I'm Casey Welch. I'm currently the chair of the Manatee Chamber of Commerce's Legislative Committee, and it's a pleasure to welcome everyone here this morning as we have a preview of the upcoming 2022 legislative session. Before we get started, I want to remind everybody to please silence your cell phones. We have METV here filming today. And with that, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I have several introductions this morning of elected officials that are in the audience. If I miss anyone, I apologize, but I think I saw everyone on my list. I know I saw City of Bradenton Mayor Gene Brown, former Legislative Committee Chair, Mayor. I know I saw Councilwoman Jane Coker as well, Legislative Committee. Thank you. I didn't see our good friend, Supervisor Election Senator Bennett. Did he make it today? Okay. Well, we'll send his meal wrapped up. Clerk of Court, Angel Colonesso. I know I saw Angel this morning. Good to see you. I know I saw all of our Commissioners Baugh, Vanessa Baugh. Good morning. Commissioner Reggie Bellamy. I know I saw him. Commissioner George Cruz. I did not see him. Is it okay? See you, hey, George. Sorry, I missed you there. Commissioner Satcher, did he make it today? I did not see him. Okay. Commissioner Servia, Misty Servia. She's here. I know I saw. There she is. Okay. I saw her earlier. Commissioner Van Osterbridge, former Legislative Committee member. I know I saw him. And Commissioner Carol Whitmore. Good morning again. I saw her. And we also have from Congressman Vern Buchanan's office, Sally Sheely. Was supposed to come there, Sally. Hey, Sally. Good to see you again. So I just want to thank all of you all for continued public service on behalf of the citizens of Manatee County. We appreciate what you do, and thank you for being here this morning. The sponsors of tomorrow's breakfast is Spectrum by, oh my gosh, the great, right in front of me, Judge Gilbert Smith Jr., what goes without introduction. Sorry, it's out of my eyesight. I quoted him yesterday. Okay. Again, I want to thank our sponsors for today's event. We got her first. We got school board. Oh, I'm sorry. Chad Choate, I'm sorry, over there. School Board Commissioner Chad Choate, District 4, I apologize, school board member. I'll get you back later at the back room, okay? Again, we are sponsored by Spectrum, by Charter Communications, and also Kaiser University. We appreciate their ongoing support of these activities. I'd like to ask Dr. Michelle Morgan, President and Associate Vice Chancellor of Kaiser, please come up to give some remarks.
Good morning, and thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here this morning, and if this happens to be your first time at this location, if you stay till about noon, you might see the view that we all usually enjoy in the morning with the water over here, but it's going to take a while. I think this morning's a little thick out there. I am from Kaiser University. Kaiser University was founded over 40 years ago in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and we came to Sarasota over 25 years ago. We started, if some of you know, the Quay, downtown Sarasota. We started there for our first 5 years, and then for the last 20, if you can believe it, we have been in Lakewood Ranch in our permanent home. We do love Lakewood Ranch, that's for sure. It's been a wonderful conduit for us, being right there in the hub, right between Sarasota and Manatee counties. While the university offers over 120 degree programs statewide, ranging from doctoral all the way to associate degree level programs, we have hand-selected very purposefully about 50 that we offer locally, and those are chosen specifically with our market need in mind. Where the workforce gap is where we put our programs. And so we have high demand workforce programs in fields like nursing, culinary, cybersecurity, and a whole host of others. So it is our pleasure to be here today. we are so fortunate to be in this community, and we have really enjoyed just a really rich and impactful, if you will, delegation. We're very fortunate to have the people up here that we have working for us, and I'm sure there's no shortage of work this year and the few years ahead. So thank you again. Thank you for your time being with us, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, and thank you to the Chamber.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. Again, appreciate your continued support. Now I'd like to take some time to recognize the Chamber's Legislative Committee, the Chamber Commandos. Many of them are here today. Please stand up and be recognized. These are the outstanding Chamber members that work all year to develop the legislative policies that are at your table, federal and state, to advocate on behalf of the business community in Manatee County, in Tallahassee, and in Washington, D.C. They work tirelessly through the year. We started back in August with meetings and ended with a policy platform in October, and had our annual trip to Tallahassee last week and met with all the elected officials that are in front of you today. Had a very productive trip. We also met with officials from the Department of Environmental Protection to talk about Piney Point, and with the Department of Transportation to talk about what everyone experiences every day of the traffic issues here in Manatee County and our region. And all of them, the Department of Environmental Protection and Department of Transportation, and I assure you it's not just because the legislators control their budget, had great things to say about working with our local delegation on issues such as Piney Point and on issues such as ongoing transportation issues in our community. So I think that bodes well for what we do, not only as a chamber, but as a legislative delegation. Now I want to take some time and let our state legislative delegation speak for themselves, and we're going to go in order of districts, the current districts, before redistricting, and start with State Senator and former chair of this legislative committee, Jim Boyd.
Thanks very much, Casey, and thanks Manatee Chamber for always hosting this. What a great turnout this morning. It's nice to see all of our friends from around the community here and listen to us, and then more importantly, let us listen to you of what's important as we move into the session this January. Also, thank you, Charter Spectrum and Kaiser, for always being there when called to put these events on. So thank you very much. And our friends at Charter Spectrum, I don't know where they are this morning, but Albie, I know, is in Orlando. I talked to him yesterday, and he was profusely apologetic that he wasn't going to be here. So thank you to them as well. Well, this year is a little bit different than last year in that it's there's a little more going on. The Senate is open. The House was somewhat open last year to guests and constituents and visitors, but this year we're back kind of the Senate. I kind of kidded last year that we're a bunch of old people, so they wanted to extra protect us and the young, healthy, strong guys like Tommy and Will and others, can handle themselves. So, but we're back open, which is really a good feeling. There's always an energy around folks coming to visit you and talk about what's important to them, and especially those of you from our community. We get people from all over the state and lobbyists from all over the place coming to talk about things that are important, but most important to us is what is important to you. So when you come and when you take time away from what you do every day, your businesses, your, in some cases elected duties as an elected official, those responsibilities, when you come and talk to us about what's important to you, it matters to us. So thank you for that. And then finally, in the thank you column, I could not ask for a better delegation to work with. Joe Gruters is just a terrific friend and has been for years. When I first ran for the House, I don't know what I did to have Joe accept me so quickly, but I've never had a bigger fan or a better friend in this process than Joe Gruters. So Joe, I know you're in Sarasota soon, probably depending on what maps get approved. You might be in Manatee County. We'll see. No, it's likely. I mean, those are the maps that are out there. But Joe will be a great representative for you and that part of our community as well. And Will and Tommy, Representative Gregory and Representative Robinson, what great colleagues. I mean, they know what they're doing. They're smart. They're effective. They've moved into leadership positions early on in their careers in the House. So you've got a good delegation that really cares about each other and working together to make things happen, but also for the constituents that elected us to be up there. Real quickly, and I know we just have a brief amount of time, so just give me that. This year the biggest deal is of course every year we have to do a budget, and that's by constitution, you know that. So we have to pass a balanced budget. Will said yesterday at a meeting we were at, wouldn't that be nice if that's the only thing Congress had to do? That's a whole nother story. But then, sorry, I hope I didn't steal you. Okay, well, so I got an extra 5 minutes now. And then this year we have redistricting that everybody knows about. Every 10 years as a result of the census, we have reapportionment and then redistricting. I was part of that 10 years ago when I was in the House. It's a very interesting process. Now we have 22 plus million folks here, so we had to reconfigure lines, both House, Senate, and Congress. We got, we picked up some in the Congress, as you know. So that's underway. The committees are meeting. Maps have been proposed. There's time for, in committees coming up, for amendments to those maps if anybody feels that's important or necessary. So then those maps, whatever the maps end up being, the amended maps or the maps the way they're presented, will then go to the full House and the full Senate is that it?
5 more minutes. 5 more minutes.
Nice talking with you. It'll go to the full House and the full Senate for approval. And then, assuming those pass, which some form of maps certainly will, then we will move toward filing for elections, for those of us all of us in the legislature this year, as you know, are running 120 House members and 40 senators because of reapportionment. So all of us run again this fall. Or this coming fall. So depending on where your districts lie, and most of them are, I think, pretty good. Ours is, my district, or 21, is a little different in that it takes off a little bit of southern Manatee and takes off a little bit of northern Hillsborough, but to get to the number of residents that we have to have, that's what you have to do. So that's the big thing. The other things we're working on, I'm working with our great clerk, Angel Colanessa, and her association on some legislation that truly helps and supports the clerks of the courts. They've been through a lot over the past years with all that's going on there, with the pandemic and the access to funds and all kinds of things. So we're working on that. I've got another opioid issue that I intend to pursue that helps pharmacists put Narcan in caregivers or family members' hands. And as you know, Narcan, the opioid antagonist, is a lifesaver. It's very safe to use. It doesn't do any harm if it's used when somebody isn't overdosing, which rarely is the case, but occasionally happens. I used this example the other day in committee. This year so far in Seminole County, I'm working with the Seminole Sheriff on this particular bit of legislation. Last year in Seminole County, this year so far in Seminole County, there have been 800 uses of Narcan, so presumably 800 overdoses. Sadly, 150 died, but 500 or 650 Narcan saved their life. So not to minimize at all those that lost their life, because one life is too many, but 650 folks survived as a result of having that available. So that's good. Another thing we're working on with the Attorney General and the Florida Retail Federation, for those of you in retail, we're really troubled in Florida by this smash and grab stuff that's going on around the country. Good, hard-working business owners that put their savings and their energy and life's work into their stores or their businesses, having people just come in and loot and pillage the store and take what they want, and in some cases, in some areas of the country, literally have no consequences. So that's not going to happen in Florida. So we're working on that. And then thank you. Another issue, and we're doing some appropriations, but we're also working. I've talked to Charlie Hunsaker a little bit earlier this morning about it and some others. And it's not ready for total prime time discussion yet, but we're working on a coastal project here in our community that will really preserve a pristine part of Manatee County for ever and ever. And I'm really excited about that. That's coming, and we're trying to get it in position to talk more about it. But that'll be, I think, a big plus for our state and our community as well. So that's that. And then there's some, educational issues that are around us, and our great campus in South Florida, University of South Florida, the Sarasota Manatee campus. We're working on some things for them, for State College of Florida we are. And so there's a lot going on, and a lot of us, run in a lot of different directions. But most importantly, we're here to serve you, and we're here to listen to you. And while we're here, while we're there, reach out to us. If there's something you don't understand, something you need help with, please let us know. And finally, and I know we'll get a chance to probably close, but my team, Jack Rogers and Kathy Gailey, are sitting over here at this front table. They're, I don't want to minimize any other teams, because these folks have some great team members too, but these are two of the best. So if you need anything from us, and always welcome to come to our office or call, and they'll be there to help as well. So it's a privilege to be here this morning. Thank you very much. And again, thanks to my colleagues for being good partners in this process.
Now it's my distinguished pleasure to introduce State Senator Joe Gruters.
Thank you, Casey. It's been a couple years since I've been here. Casey Welch was actually my high school classmate over at Cardinal Mooney 20-something years ago. But I used to represent Manatee in the eastern portion of Manatee, and I'm the only member of the Sarasota delegation that's here that doesn't currently represent Manatee. But like Senator Boyd mentioned, with the new maps that are coming out, it looks like I'll have, I think it's basically from this general area, straight shot all the way over to Lakewood Ranch, and I'll have a good chunk, and I am so excited to come back to Manatee. I said our communities are so close and similar that for me, I know Jim Boyd's disappointed he's not going to have Manatee all to himself in the Senate, but but for Manatee residents and the community at large to have two senators working together, and the fact that you have probably going to be one of the most influential senators, you know, our general area was blessed with Bill Galvano. You know, there's no question the impact that he had on our community, on our state. Massive force when you have a presiding officer. And I'm sure many of you know, my good friend Senator Boyd is most likely going to be the Senate president in a couple years. I will admit I was the first guy to sign a signature for him because to me it's geography and our alliance, our community alliance supersedes almost anything else. And for us as a community, you could see in a couple years we'll continue to reap those benefits that Bill Galvano started here. And this upcoming cycle, by the way, Will Robinson and Tommy Gregory, absolute superstars. And I always say Tallahassee is a team sport, and you'd be proud at the work that all of us are able to do, but these guys are superstars. I basically carry Jim Boyd's bags from his binders. I'm like the intern walking behind him, making sure he has all the stuff for the committee. He's the chairman of the Banking and Insurance Committee, which obviously with the rising costs of homeowners insurance and all the fraud that we face, there's nobody that goes to bat more for consumers and our citizens at large than Jim Boyd. But we have a lot of work to do this year. I think it will be a relatively quiet session, though, overall. That's why over the first 6 committee weeks, you haven't seen that many bills pass because redistricting is first and foremost. But we do have some good bills in line, and I know we're going to work hard to make sure that we do all we can to help you guys out. And my background is I'm a CPA. I used to work in downtown Manatee for Shin & Company. It's my old boss, Greg Green, back there. I used to work directly for him. Don't ask him how good of a CPA I was because I don't know what he would say. No, he was a terrific mentor and boss when I first came out of school. But as a CPA, I look at things, I always say I'm on the front line of businesses, right, and individuals, because you hear from so many different customers, and you hear what's going on, the struggles that people are facing, and it's my job, the way I look at things is how can we make your life easier from a business standpoint, from an individual standpoint, and pursue those policies as much as we can. And so it's going to be, I love being a senator, and I can't wait to represent Manatee County again. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate you giving the Cardinal Mooney Cougars a great plug, but how about where you got your CPA degree from? Where was that? University of South Florida, Sarasota, Manatee. Thank you for that. Had to pull that out of him. Our next speaker, who is also a former chair of this legislative committee, State Representative Will Robinson.
Thank you, Casey. It's wonderful to be back here in person. I think I was in my car last year on wasn't it Zoom? It had to have been Zoom. A Zoom call. So it's just wonderful to be here in person. And I'm going to tell you a quick little story. I got an electric grill for my birthday about a month ago, and they gave it to me disassembled in a box. Have you anyone tried to construct an electric grill? Me, of all people. But I got it built. And I was looking at it last night, and I thought to myself, I haven't even used it yet. And so it got me thinking, when's the last time I've eaten at home? Veterans Day was the last time I've actually eaten at home. It has been an incredibly busy time over the last month for the legislature. We had a special session, we had a committee week, we had Thanksgiving in the middle, a lot of activities. And I'm saying that because how fortunate we are to have those activities and those events. Remember last year, we didn't have any of that. And it's just so wonderful after a year of really a lot of pain to see the light at the end of the tunnel and to be in an event like this with you all. And I know I represent a portion of Sarasota, but I gotta say, you all have the very best chamber in the state of Florida. You really do. And when times are tough, your chamber really stepped up. I mean, every day things were changing over the past year, and I remember Jackie and her great team sending out emails and all the data, all the federal policies and state policies that were coming in, because it was a very confusing time for individuals and businesses. So kudos to your chamber and to your team, Jackie. But this state had really an opportunity over the past year and a half to really go into two different directions. And you've really almost seen a science project of how different states did different things. You know, Florida chose a direction of freedom. And it's a really tough line to hit between freedom and government intervention. But I think Florida hit it right perfectly. People are flowing in to Florida to frankly escape other states that are going the other direction. I mean, I don't know if you read the other day, New York City is requiring private employers to vaccinate their employees. So some states are going one direction. We in Florida over the past year and a half are going an entirely different direction. And I think you can see the results of what's going on. Now, certainly with the number of people coming in is wonderful, but that presents us with challenges as well, whether it's challenges to our infrastructure or to our water quality or the number of kids we have in school. So we have some challenges and some dark clouds at some point ahead of us. But our economy, frankly, and our budget situation in Florida may be the best it's been in decades, to be honest with you. And because of the tough decisions we have made, and frankly, predecessors like now Senator Boyd when he was in office in the House, and President Galvano and Senator Gruters for many years in the House, the tough decisions we had to make, and I know a lot of what we're going to talk about maybe today in Q&A will be about funding and about priorities, and they're all important. But many times in a legislative session, we have to kind of pick and choose what are the real priorities for Florida. And I say this all the time. Florida passed New York State a couple years ago in population. But New York State has double the state budget that Florida has. And I have a hard time believing that a New Yorker has twice the quality of life that a Floridian has. So we have to continue not only to invest in certain projects that are important to the state, but also be fiscally responsible and prudent. Because I have an obligation. I guess you get a little sentimental. I'm almost halfway through, at best, my time in the House. And I want to turn the keys over, so to speak, to my successor in a better spot than I got it. Because that's very important to make sure that my community that I live in is well represented and that we have an opportunity moving forward. So in terms of next year, I think the great senators mentioned it well. It's really going to be about probably maps and budget are really going to be the priorities of this session. And I'll close on one thing. And we have a very, very, very strong delegation. And Senator Gruters mentioned it because we work together as a team. And I don't think you saw that in any better example than with Piney Point. Piney Point was an enormous disaster for this area. It could have been, it was catastrophic. It could have been extra catastrophic because of the circumstances. And I'll never forget that night on Good Friday when I got the call, the breach, and Senator Boyd and I rushed to the press conference, and we both said this has got to be the final chapter of Piney Point, because it is incredibly unfair to those residents. It's not like a hurricane where you can prepare for it and you know when it's going to maybe end and you can get back to it. Those folks had no idea when they can get back into their homes. And it was a failure at a number of different levels. And the teamwork we had as a delegation, and frankly from the Senate President and the Speaker and certainly the Governor, to get $100 million appropriated for that. It was wonderful. But we're not all the way there, okay? We got the money appropriated, but we still have a number of significant steps to accomplish. So for me, that's an enormous priority this session, to make sure that we continue the progress with Piney Point, because we can't ever have that happen again. And it's because of the strength in our delegation. We have frankly rock stars. I mean, the two senators are leaders in the Senate. Representative Gregory is one of the leaders in the Judiciary Committee, and I have my own place in the Healthcare Committee. So we all have great influence for our region, and we work together. Frankly, I work together with Michelle Rayner, a Democrat, on Piney Point. So we work together in a bipartisan fashion as well, and we're here for you. And certainly I have my staff here as well. Certainly reach out to my office if you all need anything. And it's my pleasure to be here in person with you all this morning. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Robinson. And I want to, something I failed to point out when our chamber commandos were in Tallahassee last week, all of these great gentlemen stopped by the Governor's Club and spent extra time with us after meeting with us. So just to show how much they're committed to the business community, not just because of the beverages and food, but really to come and talk with us. And well, yeah, I mean, pretty much. But last but certainly not least, another former committee member of the Legislative Committee, the distinguished gentleman from Burn Creek, Representative Gregory.
Thank you, Casey. Yesterday I was at an event and told somebody that I'm not going to vote in favor of a tax. And they said, go back to Manatee County. I said, well, great. That's exactly right. I'm glad to be in a place that believes in limited government and low taxes and let businesses create jobs. And that's what you do here. It really is a pleasure to be with the Manatee Chamber again. I wasn't going to start with this, but I'm glad that my friend Representative Robinson talked about Piney Point, because we weren't here last year, because I haven't been able to tell you the story that after the press conference and they responded, what happened. But I want to back up in time before that, to the legislative delegation meeting that took place that year before we went into session, and tell you that unanimously your county commissioners were pushing us, all of them, and they had been for years, and it was an issue that your delegation had been working on. So they were pushing, and your Senator Jim Boyd and Representative Robinson, I was chairing the delegation that time, they came to me, they called me, maybe the night before the delegation meeting, and said, we want to make Piney Point the #1 priority. This is before the catastrophic failure. This is before that event took place. So we want to make it the #1 priority, and I think it was a $25 million ask. I think that's where we were at that time. So let's get $25 million so we avoid the catastrophe. So your local elected county commissioners and senators and representatives were working on it. We did make it the #1 priority. Unfortunately, that's probably decades late, right? There's an entire saga there, history. But so they were taking action before, and then after it happened, after that immediate response where they said this has got to be the last chapter, your governor, DeSantis, called all of us together, put us on a plane the next morning. I mean, literally said, be at the governor's mansion at 7 a.m. We get on the plane, he flies down here, he's reading all the history, getting up to speed, asking all of us questions about it, about the local community, who's going to be impacted, the residences, the businesses, and how do we stop it? And his dedication and quick, decisive action, coupled with the leadership of your county commissioners and delegation is why you got $100 million. Why this will be the last chapter in Piney Point is an example of the same decisive leadership that made Florida the land of the free. Right? That's how we got that reputation, based on good leadership. When I was running for office, my focus to represent District 73, and really you could say it for any of our districts up here, was to build roads. And it doesn't matter where you go, in Manatee County or Sarasota County, you have traffic. Unfortunately, we've got some dangerous intersections, some fatality driving intersections. We've all had to deal with that grief in our community. So we continue to build roads. You're always going to see me filing appropriations requests and finding other ways to work on our infrastructure, including the Port of Manatee. And I think everyone up here is carrying appropriations projects and policy bills to help in that area. But I want to close with where all of them started, and that is the team that we have up here. It really, you might not think you got a bunch of diversity up here, but you do. My background is criminal prosecutor in the military and now commercial litigation attorney. I didn't know a lot, if anything, about the nuts and bolts of CPA, the CPA world and taxes for businesses. I certainly didn't know anything about the regulation in the insurance industry. But I knew as a Floridian, and I knew as a representative, that our insurance rates are climbing too fast, in part, if not entirely, because of government regulation. So it's really a pleasure to have Senator Boyd, and just fantastic to be able to work. I think we have 3-4 bills we're doing this year together. And then same thing with Senator Gruters, to have a tax expert that I can call, and he'll bring us bills and he'll explain it to us. Now, I will tell you, he will explain it to me 2 times, and my eyes are glazed over. And then I ask him to email it to me, can somebody help me understand taxes? It's not my background. So that's why it is a pleasure to have representatives and senators from different areas. And then the same thing with my friend and roommate, Representative Robinson up there, to have a land use attorney, somebody who understands the development of land and helping businesses from that perspective and what they can do for Florida and the community. It's a godsend to work with all 3 of them. And just to continue to focus on this community, the business community, Manatee County, Sarasota County as a whole. And I'll just close with this. I'm so glad that Dr. Morgan was up here talking to us this morning, and it's a reminder of Kaiser University and all the other great colleges and universities that we have in this area. Whether I hesitate to do this because I'll miss one, but USF and SCF and New College and Ringling and Kaiser and STC and MTC, and if I missed one, shout it out. But that's how we can contribute, by supporting those schools and those universities and those technical colleges to provide jobs for you, and that's not lost on us. So I thank you for the invitation to be here. It's a pleasure working with these guys and representing you in the Florida legislature.
Thank you very much, Representative Gregory. Now we're going to get into our Q&A with our attendees. The guidelines are at your table of how we're going to do it. There's a microphone over here. You can go ahead and line up there, and I'll recognize you. We do have a question that was submitted online, but I'm going to take chair's privilege and ask a question for the whole delegation to answer on behalf of the Legislative Committee. And again, our legislative priorities are on here to talk about a major issue that has come up. It's not new to everyone in this room, and certainly not new to the state of Florida, but it's certainly new in the urgency post-COVID and the legislature's recognition of that. And I know Representative Robinson, we talked about this recently. So if you all could start by commenting on the overall healthcare crisis, but in particular the nursing shortage in the state of Florida, and what the legislature and the outstanding leaders in this room can do to help solve this problem would be really helpful. You want to start, Representative Robinson or Senator Boyd?
So I serve on the main healthcare committee, and we frankly had a 2 to 3 hour committee hearing on this topic with several hospital administrators and nurses that came in. It's a dire problem. Look, I can't imagine, I'm a lawyer, as Tommy said, going to work in a hazmat suit every day with a mask on, and every day worrying about not only the health of your patients, but the health of you and your family and what you may bring home to your family. It's a tough job. It's a very tough job, and unfortunately our nurses are leaving the profession, and we're not replenishing them, and the demand is quite high. We may be one major COVID outbreak away from having a very serious problem. So what can we do? It's been a problem, frankly, in this state and across the nation for probably a decade. I'm not quite sure what the answer is. I mean, we certainly need, frankly, maybe more funding for some nursing slots, but I think we have to make it more efficient and, frankly, easier to get some of these folks certified. And we have a bunch of ideas to do that, but it also may be time. I mean, I hesitate to get government involved in this issue because we have the experts in this room. I know we've had a healthcare task committee with the chamber many, many times. It may be time for that because this is such a serious problem for our state and our local residents that I am fearful of what could happen with another healthcare crisis. We need to do something because it's really not solving itself. So I don't have any great answers for you right now, but I know we're working on it. I know we've talked to several, like Tommy said, we have great educational institutions here. We've talked to several of them about what their needs are to try to fill those needs because it's something that, look, every employer I think I've talked to is having staffing issues. And frankly, the problem we have from the nursing issue is they keep bumping pay up. You know, they keep having rival pay bumps, and that's unsustainable. So there's certain ways we can do to help with that, but right now we're not there. So we have, you know, a great deal of work to do in that area.
Thank you. The only thing I might add to that, and that was a great explanation. In addition to all of that, think of the mandates that have come down from Washington on first responders and on nurses and hospitals. And you know, whether you agree with vaccines or not, I'm happy to say I had vaccines. I'm comfortable with that. Some haven't, and I certainly respect that. I think it ought to be your choice, though. But hospitals, not only have they faced this nursing crisis that Representative Robinson spoke of, traveling nurses, they're being paid, you know, thousands of dollars a week to go across the country to be nurses somewhere else. So they're leaving our hospitals and our healthcare facilities. I don't blame them. I mean, that's a lot of money. I would probably consider the same thing if I were one. So then there's that shortage. So how do we fill that? And I think there are some ideas, but we covet those ideas. But and just imagine, though, then the hospitals and the healthcare facilities that are faced with, you know, these mandates that are now they've been stayed by a federal court. I understand that, but these mandates that are coming down, and some nurses are saying, "I'm not going to take the shot. You know, I'm not going to do it." So then there's an additional layer of nursing shortages. First responders, the same thing. So it's a very, very complicated issue. It doesn't matter where you fall on the side of vaccine or no vaccine. All of us are in it together. And I'm not here to say you should or shouldn't get a vaccine. That's, in my opinion, your choice. But all of that complicates the matter. But there are some programs, and some of the universities here are looking at some ways to increase some nursing slots. We want to be helpful. I think some of the hospitals have indicated they want to participate in that. So together we can get through it. But it is not, it's not fixed yet, and it isn't likely it'll be fixed in the very near future.
Thank you for that. And then before I get to our, wow, we're got a really long line here. I had one submitted online, so technically they were first. So I want to be, and ironically, not from Senator Mike Bennett. So this is. Scott's like, yeah, I took care of that. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to read this as it's written. We had 35,000 votes dropped off at the drop box in the presidential election, and now we have midterms where Manatee SOE, I assume that's supervisor of election, only has the drop box open during office hours. Where does a person have to be standing in the drop box? Okay, so this is a question for the supervisor of election. I don't think it's relevant to our legislative delegation, so I apologize that I didn't read this earlier. Again, you have the rules in front of you. I'm going to ask you to please stick to the questions, and I'll recognize you, Sarah, to go ahead and ask your question, and then I will play sort of referee on who is probably the most appropriate expert to answer the question.
Okay, my name is Sarah Hand. My company is Spark Growth. I had the opportunity to participate with the Office of Financial Regulation and Commissioner Weigel in getting community feedback for the amendment to funding legislation that Senator Gruters is going to help sponsor. One of the interesting parts of the feedback that we got in access to capital for starting businesses was access to insurance. So through the work with Commissioner Weigel and at the Chamber retreat, a big thing came up with how do small companies compete for talent when insurance is difficult? How do people start businesses with insurance? So my question is, it's a can of worms. Who answers that?
Who answers the can of worms?
Yeah.
All right,
I
Senator,
think it's
Senator
kind of
Boyd.
access to
Senator Boyd.
capital we talked about, but in the midst of access to capital, really came up this thing about how do you have insurance if you're a startup? Why do you, what do you say to your wife?
So I assume you mean when you talk about that insurance, you're talking about employee benefit, like
Right.
like health insurance for employees, that kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay, I'll take a stab at it, and it would be kind of patting ourselves on the back, but we do that every day in our business, and
Right.
I'm not promoting us at this point, although we're pretty good at it. But we do have, I mean, there are companies that write startup companies in the group insurance arena. That's not my area of expertise. We have a great team that does it in our offices. Many in the room probably have the same. But there are opportunities for those. So it's a matter of working with somebody that you trust that can help you kind of guide you through it. But it's not impossible to get, whether you're a small company or a big company. And there are definitely providers in Florida that are willing to write smaller groups or startup groups. Just, there's some dynamics you have to work through, but it's definitely available.
Well,
Is that-
because it really came up at the chamber retreat, and then we went back to Jackie, and he said, we've done committees on this type of thing. And so it wasn't really so much about me, but was really the feedback from Tampa Bay Innovation Center and across the entrepreneur ecosystem. And there were small businesses that said, I can't attract talent on that. So I'm just putting it out there because it came through a number of different community engagements.
Thank you. And there have been, I mean, it's not cheap, sadly. I mean, I pay a lot for my own insurance, but it is available. But it's just a matter of the company, the number, where they are, what they do, that kind of thing. But certainly there are programs in place that could help those employers. And I know the Chamber's been actively engaged in that for years in a variety of ways. Probably not totally answer your question, but there is availability, I think.
Thank you.
And again, in the spirit of time and with the amount of folks we have lined up, if there's follow-up questions, we obviously can legislators and their staffs will be available afterwards. So go ahead, sir, state your name and organization.
Thank
Question.
you. For the record, Glenn Gibolina, citizen. So my question is affordable housing. I'm a big advocate of that. We don't have any. Against the recommendations of our great governor, you swept the Sadowski funds of 50% of the $423 million. My question is, what are you going to proffer the mayors and the board members of how to make up that difference? This could not have come in at a worse time to sweep those funds for the increase in rents and everything else. So we're just looking for solutions. Thank you.
All right. Representative Gregory's going to respond to that.
Glenn, I love your focus. We all knew when we saw you in line this is going to be a question about affordable housing. And sincerely, love your passion on, trying to find ways to build homes that are attainable. And it's such a noble cause, and it's one that I'm sure everybody in this room cares deeply about. The Sadowski Trust Fund issue, I think last year, you could view that legislation one of two ways. You could view it as a sweep and a negative, but I think the more appropriate way to view it is finally the legislature passed a law and said, from here forward, this many hundreds of millions of dollars every year are going to go to help build affordable, attainable homes. And that's after decades of sweeping entirely these funds. So I view it as a victory, and there are other reasons that legislation last year was a victory. But at the end of the day, we've got to find a way to remove the barriers to building them. I mean, the fact of the matter is, the homes that would come in at a price point that we might all come to an agreement that they're attainable or affordable are not being built because there's regulations in the way and there's no motivation to build them. I mean, this room as a business community understands that you're not going to go into the business of building homes and then sell them at a loss. So the only way we're going to be able to do it is to allow businesses to have the flexibility to build homes that maybe don't meet the current code restrictions that we have in place or whatever overlays. Those are the kinds of things that I think as a community and as a state, we've got to take a look at and continue to peel back regulations so that businesses can do what they do, so that businesses can find an affordable model, or not an affordable model, a business model that works so they could build those homes Keep attacking, Glenn. We love it.
I want to follow up about that because I'm very passionate about this issue. And I frankly wish the legislature wouldn't sweep into these funds because I think it would emphasize the point I've been making for years. Sadowski is just a component of affordable housing. There are other issues out there that are exasperating affordable housing. Let me give you an example. Senator Boyd and I had a bill last year that passed unanimously, 120 in the House and 40-0 in the Senate, that basically required local governments to just issue a permit timely. It said a couple other things, but that's basically what it said. Passed unanimously, because all folks want is an answer. So what I learned, I got a flyer from Collier County that said to an applicant who's filing for a building permit, sign this form, so if we miss our deadline, we'll deny your permit. So that was shameful. So I'm looking at legislation to stop that, because that is one component, Glenn. Infill development is another. I know we have battles in our community, and our commissioners have battles on infill development, which is the best place to put new development because your roads and your sewer and everything is there. But that's tough because people are around you. It's much easier to sprawl it out in Lakewood Ranch when no one will complain when you're 30 miles from the interstate. So Sadowski is a component of it. We do need to work on that more, but that is just one piece of it, and we all got to work on those other pieces.
Love that passion. He'll be here. He'll be here later, doing exercise in the parking lot. Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Servia.
Yes, thank you, and good morning, and thank you for your great leadership. My question today is not going to be found on the Board of County Commissioners platform, which we will be talking to you about very soon, but it is nonetheless a very important issue. The southern fishing pier of the Sunshine Skyway is both in Pinellas and Manatee counties. And every day we are seeing between 20 and 40 brown pelicans die every day there because they are caught on fishing poles and the fishermen are cutting the line, and the pelicans are then either flying to a rookery where they hang and starve to death or floating in the water and also starving. I've been working with DEP. I've also talked with many of you who are very concerned about this issue. The answer is what Naples is doing. And what Naples is doing is they have one volunteer who is there with a long net that rescues the pelicans so people don't cut the line. That takes money from the state. So my question to you is, can you help us?
Okay. Anyone talk about? I guess that's a state park, right?
So I've been working on this, and thank you, Commissioner Survey. I know you and I chatted about this, Commissioner Whitmore, as well. You know, it's a problem. I hadn't heard about continuing issues until now. I was hopeful that the FWC or the DEP were rectifying it with an additional person out there to supervise it, because folks want to fish, but inevitably with the long casts, you have problems. So I'll get with the folks in Tallahassee and make sure that we can rectify this, because I thought it was working well. So I appreciate you bringing it to my attention. Thanks.
Thank you. Reverend Golden, good to see you. I'm sorry I didn't recognize you earlier as a school board member. I apologize. I missed you in the audience. Please, you have the floor.
Good morning. I'm Reverend James T. Golden. I'm the chair of the Manatee County School Board.
Yes, sir.
Recently elected. And I have a question for Senator Gruters.
You ready?
The citizens of this state 20 years ago decided that nonpartisan elections for school board members was a good idea. And I want to know, in light of the fact that the League of Women Voters, the Florida PTA, the Florida School Board Association, and other groups around the state are opposed to partisan elections for school board members. What would it take to get you to change your mind?
Thank you, Chairman, and very good question. And the question I ask all of you is, last time you voted for in a school board race, did you know the partisan affiliation of that candidate? I will tell you, I wear multiple hats. I'm also the chairman of the Republican Party of Florida, chairman of the Republican Party of Sarasota, and we had a race in Sarasota County where they spent $300,000 on a single race. And so what do? What happens over and over and over again, you have both parties engaged. There's no such thing as partisan races in the state of, nonpartisan races in the state of Florida. What happens is the Republican Party, right, they'll go out and say, this candidate is our candidate. They do it in judicial races sometimes. They do it mainly in school board races. They do it in city council races. So it's not nonpartisan. What it is we're tricking voters by not creating the transparency that should exist when you have that partisan affiliation next to your name. Because people register with a party because they're like-minded. You share similar ideas and beliefs. And to me, the worst thing that I've ever seen is one of these last couple of elections, I saw a candidate in Sarasota, and this happens it doesn't matter if it's a Democrat county or Republican county. You had voice messages go out and say, "Hi, I'm Joe Gruters, a Republican. I'm supporting my good friend Casey Welch. Casey's a Democrat, right? I'm saying I'm a Republican because I'm trying to trick you, the voter, thinking that Casey's a Republican." And then it's exactly opposite. Then you get a mailer in your house and you say, "Casey Welch is not a good Democrat." He is a Democrat, but you're saying he's not a good Democrat. It's all a game of trickery. 20 years ago, school board races cost $5,000 to run. You had community individuals, parents stand up and say, "I want to go support my kids' education. It's the most important thing that we have for our future." Now, there are $200,000, $300,000 campaigns, and with critical race theory, mask, lockdowns, we know how important it is, in my belief, to get the right people elected. And it's time to cut out the political games, because all we're doing is we're pulling the wool over people's eyes, and we're saying, hoping that you could trick voters enough to get your candidate elected. And to me, I'd rather give people full transparency and let people know exactly where people stand.
Senator Gruters,
If we could,
you did not answer my question. What you did was spent several minutes up here trying to explain and justify your position. Now, I don't know about the Republican Party because I'm not a member, but I am the state committee man for the Democratic Party in Manatee County, and what you just described does not happen. First off,
well, hold on.
and I don't want to get into a debate with him.
Well, I know it seems like we're in a debate, and we have a long,
I
we have a
know
long line, Mr. Chairman.
But I drove all the way out here to get an answer to my question, and I think I deserve that, not a diatribe. No, you didn't cut him off when he was speaking. I asked you, what would it take to get you to reconsider your position because of the opposition that so many people, including some Republicans, to what you're advocating?
Chairman
And if you're telling me that there's nothing, that's fine.
Yeah, Chairman Golden, thank you. And it was the Democrats that used those same tactics because they can't win in a race where you have a county with Republicans. My thing is, it's all about transparency. Give the voters the knowledge. You can't convince me to take this out, but what I did offer as a olive branch and I'm surprised at all the opposition because they say keep politics out of school board races, keep politics out of the schools. But in reality, my question is did anybody ask you what partisan affiliation you were?
And
ever?
I won.
Yes,
Nobody
you did.
asked me, and
You
I
did.
won.
I'm surprised that nobody asked you throughout the campaign because I will tell you, most parties have voter guides, and it tells you which candidates are with which party. My thing is about transparency. You may not want the transparency. I believe that people deserve it, and we affiliate with a party for a reason. And to me, it's the easiest way to ensure that people have the most knowledge they could possibly have before they cast that vote. So no, I'm not going to be deterred from trying to push that and pass that new law, which will then come back to you as a constitution resolution that you will have a chance to vote for.
Thank you, sir.
And in the spirit of full transparency, I am a registered no party affiliation, which supervisor of elections office will be able to verify, but appreciate being a foil for my good friend from Carlton Mooney. Sir, you can state your name and question.
Mike Burton with Stantec Consulting.
Okay.
So, we always talk about infrastructure, how important infrastructure is. Nothing gets built until a permit is issued, right?
Right.
The Florida legislature and the state and the agencies worked really, really hard. For 30 years, we advocated for the delegation of the Clean Water Act Section 404 program to the state of Florida, because we have a fantastic, well-designed and well-functioning regulatory program that protects wetlands and waters. So they got it done. However, the implementation of that delegation has been a total and complete disaster, as many of you have probably heard from your constituents. So whether it be public infrastructure or private development or anything that requires a 404 permit has been stuck for over a year now, because the Florida DEP either doesn't have the resources or they simply weren't prepared for that. So what I'm asking is, in this next session, can we get a fix that would allow the water management districts to step in and help issue the program and get it moving, or to provide more resources to the Florida DEP so that they can hire people and actually pay them so that they stick around long enough so that they actually learn their jobs and can do something effectively?
We need to. And Mike, you're an expert in this area. And frankly, another issue that hasn't really gotten on my radar. So I will work with you in whatever way possible I can. Nothing irritates me more than inefficient, ineffective government that is just wasting time. So it's a problem at all levels. So to the extent I can help you or legislation can be filed, we're getting a little bit late in the House side to do that. But reach out to me and let's look at some legislation, hopefully, or if I need to make some calls to hopefully rectify this.
Very good. Thank you.
Mike, Casey, if I could just say one more thing. Thank you, Mike, for that, and I agree with you. It's very frustrating because we tried to fix, the problem in Florida. I know Governor Scott was a big part of that. Mike, our colleague, Senator Gruters and mine, Senator Hudson from Jacksonville, is working on something, I think, around this issue. We talked the other day, I spoke with a developer in Jacksonville who's having some issues kind of in the same area. So Senator Hudson is working on something. I'm not sure it's exactly the fix that we need that you speak of, but I'll be happy to, if you want to reach out to me, I'll be happy to plug you in with his team and let you see what he's doing, which we're supportive of, and see if that gets at it. If not, Travis is a really helpful and energetic young man, and I'm sure he'd be willing to consider doing something that would make a difference. So just reach out to us, and I'll see if I can't connect the dots for you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. That's a great question. It's actually one that we debated on the legislative committee over several committee meetings. So those of you who were on the chamber, we really, let's say, tussled over that issue, but we dove into it and tried to get a position. So I appreciate Representative Robinson, who did have to leave at 9 o'clock, and Senator Boyd for addressing that. Yes, sir.
Kevin Wright, Chairman, Manatee County Republican Liberty Caucus. Will the legislature muster the political courage to do two things? One, will you put on Governor Ron DeSantis' desk a constitutional carry bill, which he said this last week he would sign? Two, will you grant the city and county elected officials the same rights and privileges that you enjoy as legislatures to communicate and exercise First Amendment rights by addressing the unintended consequences and abridgment of Florida sunshine laws to allow them to do that?
Okay, so you want to talk about guns? All right.
I love it. If you didn't hear what Casey said behind the podium, he said, "Do you want to talk about guns?" The answer is always yes to that question. I hope so. We have been working on constitutional carry legislation for a number of years. We loved reading Governor DeSantis' comments on that. I'll tell you that I have another bill that I'm working on with Senator Gruters and others, and that's to prohibit local officials from prohibiting the sale of ammunition and firearms, which they have authority to do right now in Florida law, which is clearly an unconstitutional law. So we're trying to repeal that provision. Will we muster the courage, is the question, to do it? I don't know. I don't know. I'm always completely candid. Will we muster the courage? I don't know, and I'm not sure it's a question of courage. I will tell you that There is plenty of desire to do it, and there are plenty of people working on it. But these kinds of issues, as everybody in this room knows, suck the air out of the room, right? Just asking it sucks the air out of the room. So, and so what that does when we work on those issues, and we work on them every year we in Florida, because we have a Republican majority in the House and a Republican majority in the Senate, and Governor DeSantis work on these issues, and I believe move the ball in the right direction, and hopefully towards constitutional carry. And that's the direction we're headed. Now, whether we get there this year or not, I don't know, but I can assure you that there are plenty of people working on it, and I hope that we do. Your second question was about sunshine law. And man, talk about a law with unintended consequences, right? We want transparency. As voters, we want transparency. Like Senator Gruder said, we want transparency. We don't want to pretend. And I'll diverge for a minute to talk about the partisan, the affiliation of your party on school board, to say that's transparency. We don't want to pretend that those races aren't partisan, because of course they are. So let's just be transparent about it. And in a similar way, sunshine laws were created so that people would have transparency. And like all other laws, when we create them, they have unintended consequences. And I agree 100% with, I think, what you're trying to convey, and that is that law is crushing our local, city and county officials' ability to do their job. I would fully support changes to that law. Do we have, I'm not sure, again, it's a question of courage, but it is a question of, just how do you get people excited about repealing a law that's designed to give transparency to the people? It is a tough sell, because it's about transparency to begin with, even if it has unintended consequences. I hope we do. I hope we continue to peel back that regulation, but I won't make you any promises.
Thank you. I knew you were the right guy to answer that question. Thanks.
Kevin, I'll just say one quick thing, too. I'm not going to talk about guns because he's a gun guy, and I like guns, but he's far better than I am at that. But on the sunshine thing, the legislature also operates under the same parameters. I mean, we can't, two or more of us, if we're having a meeting on any topic, we have to make it open to the public or allow the press to come in if they want, and so on. So we feel it, too. The problem is, and I think Representative Gregory hit it, anytime you talk about, there's this thing called the First Amendment Foundation, and they're out there and they think everything we're trying to do is, hide things from the public. Quite the opposite. I mean, we're elected by the public. If the public thinks we're hiding things from them, they've got a good remedy. Take us out and put somebody in you can trust. But it does impede the flow of work, both at a local and a state level. But the problem is, anytime you start to talk about it, the haters, if you will, think you've got something to hide and you're trying to hide something, and it is a heck of a fight to do it. I would like to see us make some changes. Candidly, being completely honest, I don't know if that'll happen in the foreseeable future, because it is such a tough and complicated issue. But thanks for being aware of it, and thanks for bringing it to our attention.
I'll touch on it. There's two specific rules that are unique to the county and the city that are not applied to you. Tommy knows that.
Okay, thank you for the question. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Jamie High. I'm a volunteer for the Chamber, and I'm a member of several Democratic clubs, as well as our legislative committee. And I just wanted to bring an issue up and see if you have any thoughts. Many of your constituents are very unhappy and frustrated with the passing of SB 90. Manatee County Supervisor of Elections, Michael Bennett, called this new voter law a form of voter suppression. In fact, many of Florida's election supervisors have come out against the bill. Do you foresee any opportunities to ease these extreme voter restrictions?
So I know the senator's not here, but any of you want to talk about election reform?
I'll mention just briefly, when I was in the House, I ran an election reform bill that got us to, I think, a really good place, not because it was my bill, but consulting with supervisors and constituents, and I think it improved our process. Last year, all we did was codify essentially what was presented in the election that we just went under. Our election was probably the best election we've ever had last year. A lot of a lot of that was because of some executive orders that Governor DeSantis put in during the process to fix this problem or that. And essentially, we just codified a lot of those things. So I don't see that's going to be taken back up this year in the Senate. I can't speak to the House. But I do feel like, and I've talked to Senator Bennett. He's a dear friend of ours. I've talked to him about it a lot, and he had some consternation. On the same token, while I was on the floor talking about the bill, former Senator Alan Hayes, who's the supervisor election for Lake County, texted me and said, "I like this bill." So, nothing against Mike Bennett. He's a sharp guy and a good friend. But so there was some differences even in their camp. So I think our election process is fair. I think it's transparent, and I think it's secure. And that's what we want. We want to know that our votes are secure, regardless of who we vote for. That it's going to be counted. It's going to be counted once, and it's going to be secure from the time you vote until the time it's counted. So this year, I don't know there's a big appetite for changing anything, but we'll see as the process goes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yep, it's still morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is William Clapper. I am the communications manager for the Manatee Democratic Party. And it's been brought up a few times this morning about redistricting. Well, as you probably all know, we have a very contentious period of time when we are going through a redistricting process here in Manatee County. My question to our state delegation is, if Manatee County, or any county really, passes maps or new districts that don't reflect the will of the people, is there any pathway through the legislature that can be rectified?
I know Representative Robinson serves on one of the redistricting committees, but none of them address county elections. But Eddie, you want to talk about it?
Representative Gregory's a brilliant attorney. He may have and Joe Gruder's just brilliant, period. So they may have more they can add to this. But I don't know specifically county elections. That's their deal. But what I do know is, just like the legislature, when we passed our maps, there's remedies in court. If a group or groups or people don't feel like the maps represent the will of the people, or they're not constitutional, or they weren't transparent, or they were done in a manner that wasn't acceptable, there's remedies via the court system. And in fact, 10 years ago, you probably remember, there were some lawsuits that were brought as a result of the maps, some of the maps that were drawn, and then we had to redo the maps, or actually the court did in one case. So that is available. That is a remedy if in fact that occurs. What I would say, though, and this isn't directed at you, sir, but what troubled me a little bit about this process, and I do believe this, so at least the state process, and I know you were speaking more specifically to the county, but I think it applies there as well. We are doing our dead level best to produce fair, constitutional, transparent maps. What troubles me is, before we even started the committee process this year in Tallahassee, before the first chairman was selected by the Speaker or by the President of the Senate to chair those 3 or 4 committees, there was a group out there that said, "We're going to sue you because we know you're not going to do this fairly." I mean, before we even started the process. Again, please, that is not directed at you. But just to kind of put a bright light on where we are in our state and perhaps our community, let's look at the maps, let's evaluate them, let's be honest and fair with them. And if there's challenges, and even right now in our process, and I can't speak to the county process, but there's ways to amend maps. I think we spoke about it earlier. We're in that process now. A citizen can go online at the redistricting.org or .gov, I think it is, and draw a map if you want and give it to us. And again, that's for the state maps. But there are ways for everybody to be involved in the process. And I assume, and I know, because I know how they operate at Manatee County, if you have concerns or questions, there's public forums that you can speak to those issues, and I'm sure they'll listen to you because you elect them just like you elect us for these positions.
Well, Senator, I appreciate your comments. However, you're totally not in touch with what has happened in Manatee County.
Well, we appreciate it. We're not going to.
Very good. Maybe I'll speak to you later. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Doug?
Absolutely. Casey, thank you. I'm Doug Wagner. I'm the Deputy Superintendent of Operations here for the School District of Manatee County. And it's really just, want to just talk a little bit about awareness for workforce. I want to, on behalf of the school district, thank you for all your support over the years. I mean, we really have made tremendous strides in workforce education and public education here in Manatee County. One focus this year, however, is that we're working on is the aviation maintenance school at SRQ. It's a partnership with University of South Florida, Manatee Technical College, Suncoast Technical College, and also having it here locally at the airport. But Senator Gruters, thank you for sponsoring that. It's Representative McFarland also has sponsored that, and it's a big deal. So it's more of just of awareness to say, we know we're at the fastest growing airport, really not only in Florida, but what I've heard in the nation. We know there's workforce needs here, and we're really trying to help with that, and that's why we're bringing that to you this morning.
I was really hoping you were going to talk about the deficiency in the lag time of funding for technical colleges, but that's what you really meant, right? That was on the legislative agenda.
Absolutely. Well, we've been pushing that for over 10 years
Okay,
here,
yes,
so of course. But and the other part is the community partnership. So there's a statewide effort to support community partnership schools. Manatee
Right.
Elementary School really is one of the best models in the state, and we're going to hope to expand that to Daughtry next year. So we appreciate your support in that.
So you want to talk about workforce or that? You want? Sorry.
No, it is an important issue. I'm glad we're able to sponsor, and hopefully we're able to continue to raise awareness, bring more efficiencies, and bring more resources to some of these issues to help out everybody. So, simple answer.
And I'll just add one thing, and it's just a thank you, really, because what you do and what you all do there is critical to our state and to employment. We've learned over the years that everybody doesn't need a college degree to succeed in life, and nor should everybody have a college degree. And there's lots of ways that you can be a good and productive citizen and earn great wages by other avenues. And what y'all are doing is a great example of that. And I know we had some challenges back when I was in the House on some of the funding. It was kind of disproportionate as to some other areas. We fixed some of that, I think, and certainly the work's always there. But thank you and your colleagues there, but also across the state for doing what you do, because it is a vital and critical component to the success of the workforce in our communities and across the state. So thanks.
Absolutely, and we appreciate that as well. We truly are making strides here.
I think the right answer to your question is yes. But I mean, clearly we're all in agreement with, with your presentation and what you stated. I think for me, the turning point in the war to convince, the public and the legislators came about 2 years ago, and I was sitting in an education subcommittee hearing, and a public high school came to brief about the interesting things they were doing in Citrus County, I believe. And they came forward and they said, we've created a public charter school in Citrus County, and when the kids that go to this school, when they graduate, they either have their private pilot's license or their initial certification as an aircraft mechanic. That's it. That was their sole purpose for existing. And that to me spoke to school choices and educational options for parents and their children, and it also focused on the vocational needs and the respect for people that are in the vocational trade. So I think across the board, not just your legislature, this is not even a partisan issue anymore. I think you have support in the community and your local elected officials to get this right, to focus on vocations, to focus on educational options for our children, and that in turn supports our community, our school, and our businesses.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you.
Kevin, are you just looking to see how the snooker biting, or are you coming up to the okay, I appreciate that. Well, that's all the questions that we have for today. Of course, if there are follow-up questions that you have, a lot of the representatives and senator staff who do a tremendous job. I want to recognize them. They're in the audience. They really make the trains run on time, and appreciate them. I also want to thank our delegation, our outstanding delegation. I know it looks like we're just yucking it up and having a good time, but it's because each of our delegation members are so incredibly respected, not only here in the community, but by each other and their colleagues in Tallahassee, and we're very fortunate to have that, and they get along so well. And unfortunately, that's not always the case in all the delegations across the state of Florida. I think actually it's a rarity. So we really have a great thing. I also want to give a special thank you in closing to my boss, Regional Chancellor of the University of South Florida Sarasota Manatee Campus, Dr. Holbrook, for giving me the opportunity to stand up here and yuck it up, I guess, with you all. And thank you for your leadership here in the community. I know she serves on the Manatee Chamber Board. I know it's going to take a long time for me to catch up to emeritus status, Dr. Spiritus, on getting my time in here with the Manatee Chamber and the Legislative Committee. So I also want to thank the Legislative Committee again, all of your hard work. This is what it pays off. We're getting into the legislative session, but we're not done. We'll have our wrap up, not pancakes and pints. That'd be awkward. That'd be really awkward. I don't know if you want to host that, John Horn. Maybe. Okay. We'll do politics and pints after the legislative session. Hopefully ends on time in March. Again, want to give a special shout out to another legislative committee member and alum of the Representative Boyd's office, Spectrum by Charter Communications, and Albie Kamansky. And then again, thank you, Dr. Morgan and Kaiser University for continued support. Thank you all for coming, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.